Logie.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, tēnā koutou te whare. I think it's important to start this speech with the voices of New Zealand children, provided through a report by the Children's Commission, describing what poverty means for them. So I'm going to quote from children in this country. Sleep on the floor, wooden floor. No power, can't pay their bills, can't cook, no heating. Not enough money to pay for basketball fees, sports. You can't go to the pools and learn to swim. Scavenging for food to eat for a night. You get bullied because of your appearance. They look at your clothes and mock you. This is currently the reality for thousands of children in this country right now. And if I'm honest, I feel like I'm swallowing a bit of a dead rat standing here today to vote in support of this misnamed bill, Support for Children in Hardship. This bill pretends to support children in hardship when the reality is it represents a conscious decision by Minister Tolley and the government not to move children out of poverty. What this bill does instead is take money from struggling families to provide an average of $23.10 per week to our most poor families, and an additional $12 a week in tax credits for 4,000 families. That is deeply, deeply frustrating to me. 305,000 children are in poverty in this country. 2 out of 5 of these children have working parents. Otago University research shows that 60 children a year are dying of low-income related diseases in this country. And the government was told that to lift any, not all, not even most, but any children whose parents are unable to work out of poverty, above the accepted poverty lines, they needed to increase benefits by an absolute minimum of $30 a week. Instead, they chose to offer us benefit increases of an average of $23.10 per week. It would only have cost a few more dollars a week to be able to get at least some of those children over the line and out of poverty. And I believe it does an absolute disservice to us as a country and our concern for our children to offer that amount. The government is saying to us as a country that these tiny increases reflect our collective concerns for those thousands of children sleeping on floors, scavenging for food. Well, it doesn't reflect the Green Party's concern, and it did not reflect the concern of submitters who wanted a comprehensive solution, a brave solution to address these problems. We are supporting this bill today because we can't vote against that extra $23 and $12 for those families who today have empty fridges, for those children who are scavenging for dinner. But this in no way reflects what we think is right. So if I try and detach from my emotion on this issue, I can acknowledge that this is inadequate increase is at least a formal acknowledgement of the state's responsibility for alleviating child poverty, and that is something. But the government is taking from the poor to pay the poorest. By increasing the Working for Families abatement rate and lowering the threshold for Working for Families, Child Poverty Action pointed out that the government is failing to protect the working poor. And in fact, by their calculations, a family earning the minimum wage, working 60 hours a week, getting $46,000 a year, will now be over $2,000 a year worse off. These are poor families who this government is taking their money to pay the absolute poorest, when some of us in this house could actually afford a bit of our own income. People on our incomes could afford to pay a bit more tax to be able to address child poverty in this country. It should not be taken from the working poor. And Holly has said she'll only do this pitiful bit to help our children if their parents do more in return. And let's be clear, this is more for the government, not more for their kids. The government is saying that in return for a small contribution from the government, parents need to give up their right to choose how to parent their children. And they will be required to look for 20 hours a week work from the time their children are 3. And this policy, really, the underlying message of it is that these families are work shy and ignorant of what is best for their children. And we heard from the minister that there will be discretion here. Work and income will make the decision on whether it's appropriate work for that family, not that parent. The work and income think they are best placed. The minister thinks work and income thinks are best placed to decide on what is appropriate for the needs of a child. And we do need to, we heard from the previous speaker that the Commissioner for Children acknowledged that the average time that parents go back into the workforce is when their child is 3. Sure. But that is missing the difference between shared parenting, sole parenting. It's missing the difference between the reasons why so many people are on work and income, but due to family breakdown and the needs of different children. There will be children in this situation who have disabilities, who work and income will decide on behalf of their parents how much time the parent can spend with them, taking that choice away from parents. It will be over 14,000. That is a horribly underestimation. Families are leaving violent relationships. And I know from having worked with those families that their children need them. And for a work and income officer who has no knowledge of those children to decide when it's appropriate for that parent to be going back into work and losing that relationship and ability to be on work and income is frankly wrong. And we're further concerned that making parents look for that 20 hours a week work may compromise their ability to participate in te kohanga reo, aonga mata, or play centre models of ECE, which require substantial parental involvement. And as has been pointed out by a previous speaker, these models have substantial benefits to families. And we believe that their right to participate in those models needs to be protected. There's so much awfulness in this bill, Mr. Speaker. The decision to increase an assistance to be per family and not per child is going to lock in inequality, ethnic and financial inequality, because we actually know that New Zealand is blessed in some ways, that we're protected from the very worst of ageing populations, crisis faced by other OECD countries by the higher birth rate for Māori and Pacifica. But that means the families are larger and they face institutional discrimination that is blocking them out of the workforce. So their children, while we should be nurturing them because they are the future of our country and our workforce, we are going to be penalising those families compared to smaller families of other ethnicities. And that will have a long-term cost for us. Now, there's so much more I could say, but I want to wind up now with more words from children about what they want from us. This is another quote from a Children's Commission report. They say, "Everyone is equal. We have the same potential as everyone else. Don't put barriers in front of us. Don't leave us in the ditch. Help and support us, our families and communities. How can they, the government, expect us to look after this place, New Zealand, in the future if they are looking down on us? This bill hands snacks to children in the ditch. By supporting this bill, we are supporting children's right to eat, but we are deeply offended that we are being asked to leave them and their parents in the ditch.
Mr. Speaker.
Derek Ball.
It's